Is anyone new here? I see a few newer people. But everyone's been here before? Slides? Alright, so RevUC is happening next weekend. If you haven't already signed up, go ahead. Their spots are limited. We're doing the CTF again this year, as many of you know.
I threw that in there because I know we were talking about it, but we're planning a movie night / game night sometime. I'm not sure. I thought that would be filled in, but
not yet.
It's not. So that is on the horizon, maybe. Maybe more on that next week.
Maybe.
I can actually attend this meeting, so yes.
Sorry, I'm gonna finish this chocolate real quick. Energized.
Now,
started the first slide.
now there's like a 4-minute clip of you chewing on the internet.
Okay.
I mean 4-second clip of soul, like nothing else.
All right. Thank you.
Farther.
Take my more shots.
Right there.
All right. So tonight we're going to be continuing with OWASP Top 10 into XXE. I was heavily advised not to cover this topic because it's very dense. So this is just going to be a light intro. I planned on finishing our broken off and access control demo, as you might call it. Do you want to do that now? Do you want to do it after this?
After.
It's basically just finishing what the projectors didn't let us finish 2 weeks ago.
Let's do it after.
Okay, cool. We'll do it all in one. Okay, so what is XXE? Stands for XML External Entities. It's, the way I think of it is basically SQL injection, but for XML, and a lot more complicated. So does anyone not know XML, or like, has anyone not seen XML before? It's that weird pointy stuff that kind of looks like HTML. So XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. It's another markup language. It basically just defines the rules for encoding documents. So really long time ago, when computers were in their infancy, they used to have documents that were just like characters. And they needed a way to basically break those up into different sections so they can make them easier to search and index. XML was not directly from that. I know there was another one, I can't remember the name of it. But basically just allowed people to make documents more machine readable and human readable. So like I said, it's good at representing arbitrary data structures. So unlike HTML, which is another markup language, that focuses primarily on presenting data. So go to a website and like HTML is the backbone for like making everything look pretty. XML is primarily just for storing and transmitting data, or transporting data. So structure and data, it's not pretty. And basically the one other thing is that the author designs the tags. So like in HTML, you've got like your A tag and your P tag and div, I think. I don't do HTML. Whereas XML, you get to create the tags yourself. So that's one other thing about that. So here's a little bit of an example. So say you have this beautiful little note to Tove from Jenny. I don't know if those are the right names. I got this from the internet. But so you've got a to and a from, and then you've got your heading. Just be like, hey, this is a reminder. And then the actual body of the note. So like, don't forget me this weekend. So up at the top here is XML metadata. So I've only ever seen version 1.0. I guess it goes higher maybe, but that's basically just describing like what type of XML you're using. And then this one is encoded in UTF-8. Excuse me, so I know you can do like UTF-16 or Unicode. So what XML allows you to do is take this note and actually programmatically describe it in a document, so you can break it up and like query it. So this first, it's called the root tag on line 2, is called a note, or it's like note. So you're saying, hey, I have a note object, and then with every beginning tag, just like HTML, you gotta have a closing tag. So everything within these two tags is like nested inside. So inside there, you've got your to, your from, your heading, and your body. So those are basically just your elements. One thing to note is that tag names are case sensitive, so you can't have like capital note and then like lowercase note, it will freak out. And then there's also invalid characters, so like lowercase chevron, or not lowercase, chevron, quotes, single quotes. So if you're writing a document and you want to have, or if you want to use those, you have to use something that's known as entities. So entities are basically like variables for XML. So there's 3 different types. I've only ever really messed with general, but basically up at the top, we'll get into where you put these, but you can basically say entity name, and then in quotes, Aaron, so my name. And then later on in your document, if you wanted to use that somewhere, you would just say ampersand, and then the variable name, and a semicolon. And then when that gets run through an XML parser, it will just take whatever's in that entity and just like shove it right in the tag. So parameter entities, they're only used in the DTD. We'll go over what a DTD is in a minute, but the way I understand them is that you literally just use them in the DTD. That one's not explained as much online. And then there's predefined entities. So if you want to use like chevron or can't remember what other predefines, but like basically less than, greater than, ampersands, certain special characters that would not otherwise work in XML, you can use these predefined entities and it'll just put the characters in there for you. So I mentioned the DTD, it's the document type definition. It basically defines the structure and legal elements of the XML file. So one thing to note is that the first element in here defines the root node. So if we take our note example from earlier and we were to make a DTD for it, you can see that we've defined an element of note, and inside it, it's going to have elements to, from, heading, body, and then for each of those elements, you can see that it's just like, hey, this is to, and then PC data stands for parsed data, I think, parsed car data. I've never seen it written out. Everyone always just says it in a video, and it sounds weird, but basically that means anything inside those elements is going to actually get parsed. So if you were to put further XML tags inside, say, your to, those would actually get parsed and like shown on the screen. It wouldn't just be like the actual text. There's a certain tag that you can use for that, but we won't really get into that. I think so. One thing to note about the DTDs is for a document to be well formed, I think that's the right vernacular for it. You can define this DTD for it, and as long as it follows all of these rules, then it's like well formed because it meets all the rules of the document. So, like I kind of touched, XXE is very similar to SQL injection. So there's 3 different types. There's in-band, error, and out-of-band. So in-band, you're getting the same results, or you're getting the results in the same communication channel with the server. So if you're on a website and you try to perform XXE, it would like come back on the website. Error-based is, and you're just getting error messages back from the server, just like SQL injection. And then out-of-band is, we'll maybe get into an example of this, but basically when you're using external entities, you can load DTDs from other servers. So it'll take like any form of URI. So if you perform XXE and then you see on your server like, hey, I got a request from this server that I just injected XML into, then like that would be out of band because you're not getting anything back. It's just going straight to your server. And that's prevention. So I have some examples. You would not believe how hard it is to demo this because modern web browsers don't allow you to load external entities. Let me see that. Oh, that's horrible. Let me see that. Oh, you can see it. I can't see it back there. All right. So we go to XXE. think there's things missing here. But anyway, so I have a web server running locally on this box. I think XXE bar. Okay. Yeah. So I'm not a PHP expert, so I got this from the internet, but basically what this does is this first line here, it just allows entity loading. So that's one way you can prevent XXE is to not do this. So it looks like PHP has a built-in function for that. But basically all it does is accepts some sort of XML document as data and then parses it, and then inside there'll be a creds node, and then inside that there'll be a user and a password, and then it just spits out you're logged in as whatever the user is. So it's very straightforward. So what we can do is if we look at this creds, we can see this XML just has this creds node and then user and pass. So in this case we just have Aaron and then my password. So we can say curl to D creds.xml and HTTP localhost. Okay, cool. So you can see it just says I'm logged in as Aaron because I followed the rules. So if we do this evil.xml, I have some examples somewhere else on this VM that actually goes over entities and stuff. Maybe we can find them, but I'll explain this. So up at the top here, we have this DTD, which foo isn't right. Foo? I don't think that's supposed to be foo. It works, but I don't think this is supposed to be foo. Again, I'm not an XML expert, but basically, also this I think is supposed to be down here. What's going on here? I think this is supposed to be creds, and this is supposed to be creds too. What this first line is supposed to do is define the root node, so that would be this, because there's only one of them, or it's like the one. But basically, this defines creds and says, hey, this can be anything. But you see here we have this entity, and we've defined the name as XXE. And this little system is basically going to say, hey, instead of just defining, come back. Like if we were to leave this out, if I can find my examples, this would make more sense. What this definition of an entity would mean is, hey, define XXE as this string, file etc password. But when you add this system tag, it tells the XML parser to go out and grab whatever the contents are of that file. So you can have, I know you can use other DTDs as files. So if you like separately want to define your DTD, say it's like really big, and you just want to load that in, you can say, hey, this entity, it's somewhere else, go get it. So in this case, we're just using a file, but you can do HTTP, and you can do FTP. I don't know what other protocols you can use, but in this case, we're using file. So that's what the system does. And then down here, you can see we just shove that entity into the username. So if we go ahead and run this against my server, say evil.xml. That looks really ugly, but basically what it did was server side, it went out and grabbed whatever the contents of that file were, assigned it to that XXE entity, and in that case it was my password file. Luckily this is a VM. And then it basically just shoved it into that user variable and dumped it to the screen, so all those passwords are mine. But that's really what XXE is. Let me see, there's this remote code execution one, but I don't know if it works. I haven't tried it. It said something about a PHP expect module, which I don't know what that is, but I know what expect is. I don't know what PHP expect is. But this, I guess, would be a form of remote code execution if you could get it to run. I guess it just calls the ID of like, ID, yeah. So that would basically just be the output. But yes. Let me see if I can find. Guess it's not on here. That's unfortunate. I had a bunch of examples of entities, but guess not. So does that make sense to everyone? It's kind of straightforward, but also kind of confusing. Yes.
How actually useful is the XXE password file? Because it doesn't actually contain passwords. But is that other information useful to somebody who's trying to access the system or whatever?
So XXE password contains the users of the system. So let me zoom out here. So you can see like we have our root user and then their shell and their home directory. Really what you would want to go for, so to answer your question, it just basically shows what users are on the system.
Okay.
What you would want to go for is XXE shadow,
Right.
right? That's passwords.
But even then, they're usually salted and hashed in Linux.
Yeah.
So that's even.
I've never used a shadow file to like actually get passwords. I just know every example online is like, hey, look, I got this file, and it's always XXE shadow or XXE password. So
if you're playing a CTF and you could do this, maybe you could find the name of the service that you could then try to exploit with a certain version.
Okay.
And you could also look for which users have login capability. So if you see a lot of these have user bin no login, you don't want to try to log in those users over SSH, but if you see like admin on there, you can just try to throw passwords out.
Okay.
thanks.
System core dumper, attack.
I could have sworn I had that on here. Okay, and the time it took to copy this VM over, all my XML examples got destroyed, so that's unfortunate. All right. Short presentation today. All right, so prevention. So, avoid serialization. So, don't take your data and try to serialize it and store it elsewhere and have to transport it, because use XML for that. If you are going to serialize your data, use JSON. It's a lot simpler. It's basically just ASCII text. JSON doesn't really have any of that like super functionality, right, Chris?
No, I don't think it does.
It's just like plain text.
It's serialization for JavaScript.
So yeah, maybe avoid XML and use JSON instead. Like you saw in that web server or on that PHP script, you can just disable external entities. So if you try to demo this in Firefox or Chrome, it just straight up doesn't let you. It'll just be like, hey, this is blank, because it will refuse to load it. So you can just disable it altogether. And then you can also perform server-side validation. So I found this cool little tutorial point on XXE. So see that? No, other way. So XSD, from what I remember, stand for XML schema definition. So you can define, kind of like a DTD, what your document's going to look like and what are valid. So in this little example, they've defined their schema and then like what elements are legal, I don't have a lot of experience with this. I just saw that it was a thing and it looked really cool. But you can see in here they've got like your element first name is supposed to be a string. So you can basically take your XML and like run it through this and it'll tell you whether it's valid or not. But that is one form of prevention. So that's really all I have on XXE. Question?
Is this possible to exploit on Android since they use XML to define a lot of stuff?
Possibly. I've never seen it, but maybe you could look into that, and that would be a cool presentation.
Okay.
But yeah, when we were doing Codebreaker and it's an Android app, I saw like a ton of XML in there, so possibly. But yeah, there are XXE examples on Juice Shop. They took their answer key down, so I don't even know what they are. I can point you to one of them and maybe we can try to break it.
Probably find them in a write-up if you look for them.
I tried and for some reason, like,
You're talking about like the archive.org or whatever?
No, like just Google cache.
Oh.
Yeah, you can find cache versions of parts of the guide. Or for,
What?
For the answer key, you can find cache versions of the old one.
gotcha. I found this one website that's still up where it kind of just tells you like, hey, this is what the challenge is, but doesn't really give you a walkthrough. They used to have a GitHub page that would just be like, here's the answer, here's how you do it. And for some reason in the past month, that just went dark. So, don't know. So we can do XXE and see what we can do. Or, if you guys want, we can kind of dive back into what we covered 2 weeks ago and just go through like broken auth and sensitive data exposure, because that I can actually do. You guys want to get out your laptops, you can play around. But so let me step back into. That's what you wanted. All right, we'll do sensitive data exposure first. So this is Juice Shop just running on, oh yeah, here's the IP. You guys didn't get that? 317.11.191, port 8001. If you need it, yell at me and I'll tell you. Or if you can see it up in the top, it's there. But we're gonna open up Burp Suite. Does anyone not know what Burp Suite is? Neither do I.
Can't really see it.
Oh, 317.11.191, port 8001. If you don't want to do that, they host it themselves on like their own website, but I just ran it on EC2 for the fun of it. So Burp Suite, I only use it for one functionality, and that is its proxy. So I think it's a whole suite of tools. I think they even, Cliff, I think mentioned they have XXE somewhere in here, or like the potential to perform it. I'm not sure.
The older versions did. I assume the new one does, but they like block some of the functionality unless you use the paid version.
Gotcha. Yeah, they do have a free version, which is probably what's installed on any Kali VM.
Yeah.
The paid version's pretty expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've used Burp Suite for Codebreaker. So basically what you can do is use it as a proxy. So if you've got like HTTPS traffic going over the wire and you can't read it, what you can do is point your device at Burp Suite and be like, hey, this is my proxy, and it'll generate certs for you and everything. And then you can see all the information coming in, and then it'll just act as a proxy and send it on its way. So there's this little proxy tab. It's really tiny. Sorry you can't see that, but it's the third from the left. So if you go to options, so we'll do a little Burp Suite tutorial. This is the interface and the port that it's going to be running on. I just use this one by default. When I was messing with the Android stuff, I kind of had to switch this around. But we go back to Firefox. I have a plugin installed called Foxy Proxy, and basically it just lets you configure proxies, and you can switch and turn them off and on really quickly. So come in here, turn on Foxy Proxy and point it at burp. You can already see we're getting stuff here. For some reason on Firefox you get this like detect portal a lot, but I think you can tell it to not. Alright. So does anyone remember the SQL injection to log into here? Yeah? Maybe? No? Chris? Do you know?
I think.
What is it?
It's the single quote and then the or 1 equals 1 semicolon.
Comment out the rest.
That's right.
So, and then at that point, because we know SQL injection works, we can just say, yep. And then, yeah, you can see, that's really hard to see. Can anyone not read that? I don't know how to make it bigger. But basically you can see in here, it also, Juice Shop is unencrypted, so you could just run this in Wireshark and see everything over that way. So Burp Suite's just kind of nice because it lets you.
You can also pull a certificate out of Burp Suite and install it on your host machine.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes.
Sorry.
So we've got this packet. We'll send it on its way. There should be one that comes back. Yes. So I know that looks really tiny, but there's this magical little token that comes back with it. And if we take this token, you might not be able to see or recognize it right away, but there is a period and a period. I think there's only two. Yes. Does anybody know like tokens that have periods? No? I didn't learn about this so recently. I know Cliff might know.
Oh, wow.
JSON Web Tokens.
Oh.
So there are these magical things called JSON Web Tokens, which are not authentication, they're verification. I don't know. If we go to this nifty website, JWT, no, let's turn burp off. All right. So this website, jwt.io, has a really nice decoder for JSON Web Tokens. So if you take that token that comes back from Juice Shop servers and throw it in here, you can see how I was talking about those periods. That first period is the separator for the header, which includes the hashing algorithm. Yes, looks like hashing algorithm. And then the type of token, so in this case it's just JWT. And then the middle part is the payload or the data, and then the bottom part is the signature. So I think what the server does is just to validate this, it just signs it, and then that's how you know, like, if this got tampered with, you can check the signature at the bottom and you'll be like, hey, this was messed with. So if you look, geez, the body of this, oh, that's too big. That's good enough. All right, so you can see here in the payload, it gave us a status of success because we logged in. And then the ID of 1, I guess admin doesn't have a username. We can see their email now, so now we know the forms of all their emails, which might be nice to know if you want to try to log in as employees, so a little bit of data exposure there. We see this weird looking password. We see their role as admin. We see their last login IP, which maybe not fun. It's from somewhere.
You can also get that right off the site. They have a security section once you log in as the admin where you can pull that last IP.
Yeah. that's really all that is in here. I don't know what AIT and EXP are. Expiration time and timestamp when it was issued. So one thing to note in here, if you remember when we were talking about authentication and data disclosure, weak hashes. So did these numbers look familiar to anyone? No? Cool, they didn't look familiar to me either. So we go to CyberChef. Actually, we can just go to Hashcracker and that'll be clearer. So, my apologies. Let the cat out of the bag. I already know this is an MD5 hash. So, if anyone remembers MD5, not good. So we can take this funky looking password and throw it in here. And look at that, admin123. So using weak hashes, and it's obviously not salted, or no, not salted. Not salted.
Yes, the digest has no salt by default.
Gotcha. You can see that it took what, like 1 or 2 seconds to crack that, and now we have a password for the admin, so weak hashes, not good. Can't remember what else we have on here. I think that's really it as far as data exposure. Do you guys want to go ahead and try XXE and just see what we can do?
There's also a TOTP secret in there, so if they have two-factor, you can pull their tokens down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Didn't know that.
That's what that is.
Thanks, Chris. Okay. So, excuse me. I know. Did we log out? No, we didn't let this go back. Okay, now we're logged in. So the one place that I've seen XXE maybe come from is in the complaints section. So you can see it lets us upload a file. And if you look at all supported types, it looks like it only supports PDF and zip. So that's really as far as I got. When you guys finish challenges, it notifies me as well because it's all in the same instance. But this is the one vector I've tried, is just uploading an XML document here. Not really sure.
Do it.
I don't know if I don't have any XML on here. Here. Alright. I think it's version XML. Let's do this. Cool. Let's copy this over. I have no idea if this is going to work, but I think out of 15 of us, we could maybe find a way.
type.
Probably. Actually, I think that, yeah. Is that right?
Yes,
My XML is not good.
it looks right.
Vim is highlighting it, so I assume it's right.
Based on the 20 seconds we spent with the other examples, it looks right.
You can also upload files through the user profile picture. I'm trying to play with it to see if it does anything, but anything different than the complaint section, but it's another way to upload files.
Ooh, there we go. So, if you noticed in here, the profile picture is an SVG, which it looks like it's a markup of some sort. Oh, it's an XML-based text format. That might be a thing. Oh yeah, it's just got XML right in it. So maybe you could upload a profile picture.
Yeah.
That's got some XML in it.
SVG.
Can we get the admin user profile? Because I know it said it had.
Yeah, you can just visit browsing.
There we go.
The big logo on our website is also SVG.
Sweet.
You want to use that in any future CTFs.
I figured we would take one. I don't want Slack. Go away. Alright. We'll save this. Whoa. So what if we just shove something at the head of this, and then like...
You put an element in before, and then check the image after. Like, right-click inspect image, but then view source.
Good idea.
Or just download it.
Okay. Can we just put like XML right at the top? I've never done this. Where's our example? Oh yeah, that concludes slides, so like if you guys got a roll, I won't be offended. Just do SVG as doc type, right? Because that defines the root.
Yeah.
And then if we define entity, think that's it, and then we just throw it in here. All right, I think. Let's see.
Aaron, I think that the customer feedback thing.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's where you can do the entity thing, although I can't get it to actually dump the output, because it's not going. I'm not sure what the backend is doing.
Gotcha.
Also, there's the photo wall, but it looks like that's just a JPEG. You might be able to do SVG.
Looks like it doesn't want to take our profile picture. I think we messed it up a little too much. All image formats are accepted. Okay, let's see. So it says content type of SVG XML. It might be getting mad at this header. What if we just nuke this? I don't know what I did. It's not coming back. The server probably just dropped it. Guess let's see if we got something out of there. Oh man. Okay, so it doesn't look like it let us change the profile picture. That's unfortunate. Bless you. that's the thing. What's this XML NS?
Oh, that's just the standard.
Let's rip this and put an entity in it and see what happens. Oh, Cliff, I didn't find it, I just remembered the other day, like vim::r to just like read the contents of a file. Spicy.
I realized you can pretty much do a copy paste to a different file.
Is it? I think I have that somewhere, but that's pretty dope.
What?
GG equals G.
Something like that, yeah.
Should only speak in Vim.
The Shift V one was good. I've been using that a lot lately.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why. I always just did like V and then like highlighted it all, but
I was twiddling my fingers on a keyboard today, and I actually found out I would select a function body and nothing else. I was entertained by that for about 10 minutes.
I by accident found the like highlight word by clicking like Shift pound or Control Shift pound. Crap. So let's see if this just works, and then we can go from there. Oh man, it didn't like that. This looks like a thing. Let's see. Do you ever watch FPPSec? All his Hackbox videos? That dude is a wizard. Okay, it really doesn't like the XML in our SVG, so that stinks. Cliff, have you gotten just like a normal PDF to upload?
I have not, but I did get it to put out the success message for XXE.
How?
Go to complain, and then go back to your XML.
Do we have one in here? This was the start of one, but
Yeah, that's fine. You just have to do ampersand creds.
where?
Right there's fine.
Can we just do not XXE? We can just do it in creds, right?
Should be able to.
Not $sign. That should be okay, right? I think. You just upload this?
Yeah.
I tried this like 10 times last night. It did not work.
You might need to change the tag from creds to something else if it doesn't work.
Gotcha.
But it doesn't give output, so I think that you need to inject it into a different part of the site to view the output.
Interesting. Did it not take?
Intercept is still on.
Yeah, I want to see. Okay. Huh. What XML version did you use?
Version 1.
RIP.
I think that use actually might have worked. It just like doesn't actually give output because it sucks.
Great. It's not even submitting it, it's just saying no file accepted, or no file selected. Interesting. That's weird. Well, with that, that's all we really have on XXE. It's a big beast that I was scared to dive into. I also don't know XML that well. But thanks for coming. If you have any questions, I'll hang around. But see you.